or we might have a Twitch like hangout and play like Among Us or something. I don't know what we're gonna do yet. But yeah. Anybody in the guest request disagree with me or Kenzie, and would you like to chat with us? Really, Kenzie, when you're on my lives, shit just pops up.
Well, I mean, I think
This person's
together,
been
our
waiting a
forces
long time.
combine, you attract the racists and I attract the misogynists, and we just get the worst people.
Our forces combined. Oh man, yeah, Kenzie. People on Twitch said that we need more Kenzie. So.
Oh, thank you, Twitch.
Oh boy, let's see. Not Joe Kens. Josh is in the box. Push is in the box. Why so tall? I don't want to say the rest of your name in case. Is in the box. I don't know if this person agrees or not. We'll find out.
Full metal. All right.
Full metal.
Hello?
What's that?
Full metal jacket.
How's it going? Not as fun, but I get it.
Yeah. So yeah, what's up?
Just by the way, real quick, I don't know if she's in here. Courtney, you once sent me. I think it was $25 on Bitcoin. That shit's at like $8 now. I've not touched it, but Bitcoin really dropped off.
Oh, that means buy more.
I'm not buying more Bitcoin. Anyway, Full Metal, what did you say your take was? What's your take?
Yeah. I think the last one, stop punishing LGBTQIA plus people. So I was wondering, with that statement, well, what kind of punishments are you seeing out there of that group?
Yeah, so right now in Florida, teachers, if your student outs themselves as gay, teachers are required to report that to the school. That's like a severe punishment, like just for being gay, like that they have to get outed by their teachers.
There also is some transgender policies that actually repealed gay rights back to where same-sex couples can no longer be on insurance with each other, whether that is health insurance or life insurance policies. If you want a comprehensive list, there's a lot in terms of like donating blood as well as adoption barriers.
So that sounds like, I guess, preferential treatment, right?
Why would that be preferential? Like, why would anyone prefer that?
No, I mean, they're preferring, straight couples for adoption. And for the first one, is that reporting causing them to be out of school? Or are they not being allowed to learn?
Well, you should never out someone to begin with. Like, that's very dangerous, especially if they live in a state that's probably not as LGBTQ friendly. They could have family that disapproves. You could really harm kids by outing kids when they're not ready to be outed. We could also look at a lot of the GOP's attack on transgender kids and transgender individuals and how they just are causing more harm to these people.
So what areas are friendly to LGBTQ people in your opinion?
You mean what states?
Yeah, what states, what cities, what towns?
I mean, predominantly blue states are a little more LGBT friendly than red states are.
Give me one for example.
I mean, New York City is pretty gay friendly.
But not the state.
Depends on where you go in the state. The upper counties of New York are pretty racist.
The law, or are you talking in terms of societal acceptance?
Yeah, societal acceptance. Pretty much, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that in what areas would they then, go instead of, I guess, trying to get other people on their
Thank you for
page,
following me on Twitch.
in a
I
sense.
see. You just want to segregate them.
No, I didn't say segregate. It's not
Well,
saying that you
where
have
would they
to go.
go?
Well, I'm not saying you have to go over here. There, and that wouldn't be legal anyway.
I would assume typically urban areas.
Yeah. So, you know, for example, would that be?
Probably not establish laws that actively hurt them.
Yeah, I would say federally protected rights, as well as sex education K through 12 to make sure the next generations, if they are not acceptant or at least tolerant.
Yeah, sounds fair.
Pretty
But
fair.
could you tell me, like, what is so punishing? I mean, you know, I guess I just don't see it as much punishment as some other things. But
I mean, they're trying to target parents that are trying to provide their children with gender affirming care. That's pretty bad punishment when we know that providing gender affirming care can like limit suicide rates.
Yeah, I mean, there's also other barriers in terms of social stigma. Typically, the LGBTQ community is more susceptible to sexual assaults, as well as suicide, anxiety, and depression, simply because of societal beliefs and pressures.
And you guys want to have people change their societies to help that community, right?
Yes, I would love if people weren't prejudiced against other people.
Same. Prejudice in 2022 seems a little backwards, if you know what I mean. If you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Let's see. So when they're targeting these parents, what are they doing to these parents?
I don't understand the question.
Well, like targeting, like, you know, forcing them to segregate, for example, or are they forcing them to do something against their will?
Do you want the LGBTQ community to have equality in America?
I think they do.
Do you think they are treated with respect and dignity by society?
Yeah, a lot more than other groups.
Like, which groups are they treated with more respect and dignity than?
Black and Asian.
Interesting.
And by what measure are you determining that?
The speeds of the type of laws, overall non-punishment.
I mean, personally, I just don't think it needs to be an oppression Olympics. I think any group experiencing
No, but she asked the
oppression.
question. I'm just answering it.
Yeah, again,
Well,
It's true that Asians have been in family camps, segregation, redlining,
gay people
obviously
have also been in
lynchings.
camps. Have you ever heard of a gay conversion camp? They also have camps for gay people.
I have.
Which, by the way, did you know up until very recently we were federally funding those?
Yeah, they put
Like
in
recently, as in the last year.
Could, put federal funding into those, same as state money. They have ways of making loopholes like that. Yeah.
So if you want to ask, like, how are we hurting gay people? Like, funding conversion camps is a pretty big one.
Yeah, that one definitely needs to go. I believe that. Do you know that from what ages are those kind of kids in there?
I could care less if you're 50. You still shouldn't have to go to a conversion camp.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying it's right, and it shouldn't even be in there. Number
It's
one.
wrong?
Yeah, I said it's wrong. It's because not to the extent when you said between other groups, like it was whole families, whole communities put into internment camps, and segregation that affected all groups. It wasn't just parents sending their kids to a camp, not just a camp, a wrong camp at that.
Have you heard of Jackie Eubanks?
Who's Jackie Eubanks? I haven't heard.
Jackie Eubanks is running for congressional seats in Michigan, and she self-identifies as what we are seeing as white Christian nationalist, and essentially claiming that the underpinning of America is Christianity, and that therefore our law should be based on Christianity. And if she's elected, she will work to have gay rights removed. Do you agree with the kind of ideology?
With the separation of church and state, it should not happen. She's sort of correct that it is broadly the accepted religion in North America. But most laws shouldn't be written in the laws, but at the same time, we know murder, stealing, lying are somewhat aligned.
Those are not
Lying.
Christian.
What does lying have to do with anything?
Well, false witness on another person, that's slander, or what's the other one? The other law they made, like when you try to destroy someone's character on false notions.
Slandering?
Yeah, that's one I said.
You do recognize that America was not founded on Christian values, correct?
That's correct. America as a state and its governing body is not a church.
Great. Do you know who Mark Burns is?
No, who's Mark Burns?
Mark Burns is
defamation. That's right, defamation. Thank you, chat.
Mark Burns is a pro-Trump pastor who is essentially also running for office in the southern states. I'm trying to figure out which southern states so I could give that to you. But he has essentially called for almost a genocide of the LGBTQ community. He poses them as a national security threat and that they should be found guilty of treason.
Yeah, that dude's crazy.
So it's statements like this from people. So it's South Carolina's fourth district, congressional district. So we have someone in South Carolina, we have someone in Michigan. When it comes to like this white Christian nationalism ideology, it is becoming more prevalent, especially within the Republican Party. And obviously they are targeting these very human rights issues, like with the LGBTQ community. So I would say that it's safe to say that as a society, we really haven't become to an inclusive point in our American culture. And that is one of the biggest barriers that they face today.
Yeah, I can understand how that thought process can lead you to that. But even, I would say, worst case scenario, they try to make a law like that, it would not be what's called constitutional in a way. Because we're not founded on Christian ideologies.
Familiar with Roe v. Wade being overturned?
Yeah, that isn't constitutional either. Just by the logic of it.
That is what?
By the logic of.
You said it's a constitutional what?
It's not constitutional because it's logically not fitting within the Constitution.
So that's another argument which you're completely incorrect. Like Roe v. Wade has precedent on top of precedent, but you realize that the implied privacy of the 14th due clause, that other constitutional rights were founded under that, including Hodges v. Obergefell, which gave gay rights to marriage.
So can you explain the 14th Amendment, which that is based on?
In terms of what?
That the president was based on?
So the 14th Amendment gives us the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the thank you. And the Supreme Court has argued multiple times that the right to liberty, one of those liberties is your right to privacy.
Yeah, you can have right to privacy, but that doesn't really speak to the precedent that was set for abortion to be legal.
Well, it does. They found that because you have a right to medical privacy, the only person that can make medical decisions for you is you and your doctor, not the state.
Yeah. And even if you look at Casey v. Oberfell, they essentially argued that the state would have to establish a state's interest in why abortion would be a state's issue.
Right. Well, in the same sense of, because there is a not so clear line between, the decision to end a potential life, which can intercede on another person's pursuit that is the sins of him get an inheritance, right? So as soon as, say, his wife is pregnant, that child also has claims on portions of the estate. And if that person dies or is, ended, they're no longer, going to be able to collect. So in that case, you have two things that are kind of contradicting each other, that you can impede on somebody else's life or liberty as well before they can, say, defend themselves.
Again, that makes no sense. That is the strangest and weakest argument I've heard in terms
also,
of
like,
arguing why
a fetus is not a person.
Well,
like how would you outline, especially
on the fetus is not a person, but a fetus becomes a person.
Right, but they aren't a person. Because I could say the same thing about sperm. Yeah.
Well, yeah, sperm is not a person until it meets an egg and, becomes, starts the process. So if you stop the process unnaturally, that's still a potential life. And until that fetus doesn't become a person naturally, then you're not impeding on that person's life for liberty or fight for liberty.
I would actually argue that the fetus is invading my right to liberty because they are using my body without consent. So they are infringing on my right.
Well, yeah, that's the murky water right there, is that because we still have, how long is it till you can't use like Plan B or something like that? What is that? I don't know. I'm not.
Once you're pregnant. Like Plan B, Plan B is a form, like, what does Plan B have to do with anything?
Well, Plan B stops pregnancy from taking hold, right?
Plan B can either stop
72 hours. That's 3 days. Right?
Or can prevent fertilization. What is your point with that?
Well, if you prevent fertilization, then you stop the process before it becomes conception, right? Conception, before conception.
Okay.
So then it's, as the world is, that's just how the process works. But
when do you think a life becomes a life?
That is the biggest ought and naturalistic fallacy I've ever heard.
Well, it's at conception because there's no other point in which that process begins. Okay,
and at which point in conception? Conception has multiple stages. At which point of conception would it begin?
Well, what's the beginning of conception?
The sperm being transported to the egg is the very beginning of conception.
Okay, but that hasn't been fertilized, right?
So you're saying life begins at fertilization?
Right. Well, you said transport, but it's going toward. I'm just saying if it's been fertilized.
So is it when the sperm latches onto the egg? Is it when the sperm enters the egg? When the head of the sperm dissolves? Like which?
I think my opinion would be when it attaches the wall. Right. It has to attach, in a sense, right?
Well, so multiple sperms attach the wall at once.
No, not the sperm attach. You're talking about the fertilized egg attaching the wall, right?
Oh, so implantation.
Implantation, yeah, implantation.
Okay, so it's not life before implantation.
Right, because you can have, plenty of sperms hanging around for days. Because I think there's a certain amount of lifespan that a sperm can live inside of a uterus.
Can you just tell me your whole point here? Like, I know how pregnancy works.
Good. Okay. So, so at the beginning of that process, as we say, I forgot the dang word you just said, but attaching to the wall is the beginning of the process of life.
Okay. What is your point?
So in that case, that is potential life. And if you end it unnaturally, it's impeding on their rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So as long as you end it naturally, it's okay?
If it ends naturally, not if you end it naturally. That's not ending it naturally.
Do you know a lot about rights?
Say again?
Do you know a lot about rights?
Yeah, I do.
Do you know the difference between a positive right and a negative right?
Okay, so I know about rape is wrong, but what was your second question?
Do you know the difference between a positive right and a negative right?
No, that's a new one.
So positive rights are essentially things that you require from another person or from society, like the right to healthcare would be a positive right. And negative rights are essentially where we require either someone else or the state not to infringe upon us. So what would you say the right to life would be? A positive right or a negative right?
I think it's kind of both.
How is it both?
So you said positive right is the rights you need from other people.
Or society, correct. Like the right to healthcare. Like you just aren't born with healthcare. Society has to provide to you.
And negative is that no one can infringe on your rights in a way.
Correct. So essentially a positive is something that is given to you, and a negative is something that you don't want taken from you.
Right. So for that case, obviously it's life. You don't want it to be taken. And positive is that it's from the and positive is from, needing the care of others.
So I would agree with you that the right to life is a negative right, because essentially we just ask that no one take our life from us. Like Jovan can't infringe and take my life from me. If you want to apply the right to a sense of pregnancy, you can't imply it in the negative rights format. It can only be given in a positive rights format, because the fetus or embryo requires the mother
all the way up to 14 years old.
You recognize that a fetus in utero on life support is different than material dependencies that we have outside of the womb, correct?
Well, it's still the same notion to your point, right? Because it still needs the care of the mother, even though it's not a physical, connection. It's still a nurturing connection.
Then I would just argue that once the mother has given birth, that she is essentially entering into a contract with the state, where she is saying, I understand that these are my parental obligations.
Right, which she can do. Yeah. She can give the child up for adoption because the child still needs those positive rights.
Adoption is just human trafficking.
Yeah.
It's not, in a sense.
For sure.
It's not the original idea of it.
Sure, but that's all it is. You're just paying for kids. It's adoption is buying children.
Well, it's
so again, your
not
whole
really like that.
Abortion is violating the fetus right to life is not a.
But that's where the disagreement is, and it's not like
it's not a disagreement. I'm right and you're wrong.
Okay, absolute. Okay, I understand. So, it's still, like I said, you know, that's where your the arguments clash, in a sense, and you know, it's not like you go to somebody and you just buy the babies from them, right? There's obviously some things that have to be taken care of for the child when you're making, say, a trade of money for a child, right? But it's not like human trafficking where someone literally kidnaps somebody and takes them somewhere else. You know, those are two different definitions.
Really? Wait.
Amy Comey Barrett put in her section of the opinion that there was a drop in babies available to adopt.
Say again?
Does it concern you that Amy Comey Barrett, in the section of the opinion to overturn Roe v. Wade, said that there was a shortage of babies to adopt?
Don't really see much of a problem with that.
Really, you don't see them overturning abortion rights to make more babies to create a market of buying babies. You don't see that as a problem.
I don't think that's the ideal. I think that's more of a, let's say...
If have babies to adopt, wouldn't that be a good thing?
Well, yeah, it would be happy for them because they're finally able to raise a child. If that's what their goal is.
In the United States, there were no babies available to adopt. Would that be a good thing?
Yeah, it would. It would be a good thing.
Great. So why is Amy Comey Barrett concerned that there aren't enough babies to adopt?
I don't think she's concerned. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think it's about a concern. I think it's more just stating that there is a demand for people that want to adopt children versus the available amount.
What? There shouldn't be a demand for children. That's all I'm saying. We shouldn't be selling kids to the highest bidder.
It's not about selling kids.
It really is. Like, private adoption is one of the biggest businesses in the United States.
Well, private adoption is not good. We agree with that.
You definitely shouldn't be able to buy kids from another a third world country. That's even more fucked up.
But those countries are doing that, and sadly, there's those with low morals that go looking for that because of whatever difficulties they perceive. But legal adoption for those that cannot provide for the child, for instance, kids that are, as they say on TikTok, are worded at a very premature life date and go through with the pregnancy. And we know that that person cannot raise a child. Adoption for, a family member to take it, or someone that has, decided to put their money into finding a child to raise for the right reasons. Because, as murky as life is, we know some people still do things for the wrong reasons.
In my opinion, we just shouldn't sell kids. Period.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's definitely a very murky subject. But like I said, on the first topic, when it comes to the Constitution, it's still in that murky side where most or a large amount of people and legalists believe that contraception, or the word I'm looking for, is the beginning of life, and impeding on someone else's life is not constitutional.
We already went through that.
Yeah, I know, but that's where it's at right now.
Where someone's body can be used as life support to sustain someone else.
Well, the way the world is designed is the way it is. I wish that it wasn't like that. But that sometimes happens, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Example, outside of pregnancy.
Say again?
Tell me another example outside of pregnancy where someone can use someone else's body as life support without that person's consent.
You cannot.
What? You said Canada?
No, you can't. Not Canada. I said you cannot use somebody else's life for life support against their will. That's not right.
Great. And then why do you give special exception to pregnancy?
Because that's the beginning of someone's life, and it's not the same as me hooking up a blood transfusion to you when you're knocked out and forging your signature because we're the same blood type. And
right. So why do pregnant women not deserve the same as you?
Well, I think they have a certain ability to not get into that situation. Like we said, with Plan B, there's 72 hours. And then there's always the murky part of unknowingly. But it's just the way not the world, but the biology works. And I wish it was more like, you get a choice to have the egg and sperm connect to your body. Like, there was like a yes or no button when that process begins, but just doesn't seem to exist.
Just because something occurs in nature doesn't mean that we have to sustain it.
You gotta say that again. It kind of blurred out.
Just because something occurs in nature does not mean that we have to sustain it or construct our laws around it.
Well, this part of nature is very different because it's the life of a human being, right? So.
Special pleading.
Say again?
Special pleading.
Special pleading. Do you mind if I rejoin? The chat's saying it's hard to hear me.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to hear you.
Yeah, I'm going to be ending the live soon, but you can come back, Kenzie. Kenzie?
Yeah, rejoin.
Okay.
Yeah, because, in my opinion, when it comes to the constitutional part, where this is kind of sending it back to, states to write up their laws, which, kind of even works with education, that the Fed shouldn't be, setting the educational precedent for the larger whole, but for every state or every county, because they have, different needs. But as we are now of a global world, everyone's trying to make sure we're all ahead of the world. But I think it kind of still sends it back to the states for them to decide. The same way that, some certain states or cities are more friendly to LGBTQ versus other states and that, want abortion or not. Because it can't be federally over everything, right?
It's not a federal law. It is a federal protection from the state government interfering on. Are you a conservative?
Nope.
What are you?
Sorry, I'm just independent.
Is that like a libertarian?
No, let's just independent.
Do you believe that there should be less government oversight?
Yes, absolutely.
Then you should be for abortion being a protected right.
Well, yeah, because this same conversation, as I was kind of conversation with my wife about it a little bit. She was like, well, why don't we just, just, and she doesn't believe this, but she was just stating an ideal, not to say it's right, because I definitely told her it wasn't right, that they were like, well, you just force women to be on birth control until they finally decide to have a child. And I said, well, federally, that's not right, because that's impeding on somebody's rights to do whatever they want, in a sense. Of course, they're not harming anybody by doing that, but there's still some effects of birth control and stuff like that.
Yeah, but, you are. Yeah. You are completely removing someone's autonomy by forcing them to be on birth control.
Exactly.
Just the way that you are completely removing their autonomy by forcing them to sustain pregnancy.
Well, at the same time, we talked about how it begins and stuff like that, but at the same time, it kind of, and I know I'm definitely wrong, but it kind of says that, all states have to allow this at the same time, but that probably doesn't make any sense as well. But, it's just not federally or constitutional to force anybody to do something. And at the same time, for all states, if they don't want to have abortion, they have no way to say yay or nay.
What interest could the state have in regulating abortion?
Let's see. Well, the hospitals are going to get a lot of money. That's one thing for sure.
I'm sorry, are you saying capitalism is why abortion should be illegal?
No, I'm not saying that it should be. I'm just saying, answering your question, what incentives there would be to have more babies being born.
Why do you want women to go through pregnancy and give birth against their will?
I do not want them to give birth against their will.
Then you are for the right to abortion being protected by the federal government?
No, because that would end the life of a potential life, which is infringing on someone else's life.
Then you are for forcing women to sustain pregnancy and give birth against their will?
Not totally.
You are, whether you want to admit it or not.
So I'm gonna put a pin in that there. I'm gonna put a pin in that there. I've been live for 2.5 hours.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I'm gonna end the
time,
TikTok. We are gonna on Twitch. We're gonna watch this video from the Slate about how live action was like framing abortion clinics and whatnot. So we'll do that over on Twitch. So if you want to keep watching and stuff, head over to Twitch. Then after that, we're gonna go into Discord for some Among Us game night stuff probably. But I will be in my Discord chatting as soon as that we're done watching that abortion video over on Twitch. We're gonna hang out in the Discord tonight. So if anybody wants to come follow me, Kenzie, thank you for joining me like always.
Thank you for having me.
We are like really, really the best duo. I swear.
Don't is Sanvi in here? I think you just broke her heart.
Sucks to suck, Sansies.
I know. Bend the knee. Bend the knee, Sanvi.
I'm always gonna choose Kenzie. But Full Metal, thanks for debating with us.